But that is what we call a teachable moment. But don't raise your voice, just say, oh, I noticed that there is something on the wall. Shall we clean it together? And you show how and let the child does it. Maybe she doesn't clean it 100%, but she knows that she's responsible for what she has done. So look for these teachable moments as you go along. Now, I promise those of you who have boys that I'm going to specifically touch about boys. Yeah. Now, boys undergo 3 distinct stages, and this is something that have been observed universally. It's not just Malaysian boys or Singaporean boys, Malay boys, Chinese boys. These are a universal observation. They undergo 3 distinct stages from the age of 0, 6 to 7, and then that's the first stage, second stage, third stage. What's the significance of this stage? From 0 to about primary 1, the boy primarily belongs to the mother. When I say the boy primarily belongs to the mother, it doesn't mean that the father is not important, because bonding takes place even when the mother is pregnant, right? And especially from the day the child is born and so on. But what I mean is that typically, usually the boy would gravitate towards the mother when he wants something and so on. But by the age of 6 to 7, you will see a sudden shift in interest. And of course, this is the general observation. There are boys who don't really gravitate towards their father, but generally they will do that. 80%. When you say generally, normally it's 80%, the 80-20 rule. So they will take a sudden shift of interest towards the father. Sikap bapak dia lah, style baju lah, whatever, the hairstyle, the clothing, the shoes, and so on. And if the father doesn't come home, of course, he will start asking. Alright, until the age of 13 to 14. Why is this? Because the boy wants to learn how to be male. He's learning how to be a man, how to become a man. But at the age of 13, 14 onwards, the role models of other men are becoming increasingly important. So the thing that is most important that we have to remember is, if from the age of 6 to 7 onwards, if the father is not around, you could be, you could have other role models like uncles, teachers, male teachers, coaches, and so on. But if there is no good role model around, what happens to the boy? What are his role models? Brad Pitt. Siapa lagi? Well, you have to ask yourself whether you want Brad Pitt to be the role model, of course. Siapa lagi? Football players, Tiger Woods, whoever he reads about, isn't it? That's okay, yeah, possible. It's possible. Whoever he reads about in the papers, based on what he reads, based on what his mental model is. And not only that, apart from that, his friends, his peers. But his peers are also looking for role models. So it's a vicious cycle there. That is why it's so important for a male role model to be present. Very, very important. Otherwise, they cannot resolve this issue, who am I, and how a male is supposed to behave. You see, our sons look at how we behave. It's not just the father. The boys will observe how you, the mother, behave towards the father, whether you are so submissive, you listen to everything the husband says, whether you speak up for yourself. And most importantly, we as the mother, we are sending a message to the boys how women should be treated by the way we behave. So that's one of the most important things that maybe we don't actually talk to the boy and say this is how a woman, they observe, yeah, they observe from the way we behave. I suppose most of you have heard of testosterone. Testosterone, right? What is testosterone? And you know how it works? Testosterone begins to be present in the male fetus 6 weeks, 7 weeks, and so on of pregnancy. And this is a very important male hormone because it is what makes males males. I mean, once they start having this hormone, they will start developing the sex organs and so on. And there are times in a boy's life when the testosterone jumps up, melonjak tinggi, at the ages of 4, between ages of 11 to 13, and 14. In fact, when you see here, in some boys it increases to 800 times than the normal before it goes down again. So what's the point here? Why is it so important? Testosterone helps boys to grow, but it gives them problems as well. Why? Because at the age of 4, what happens? We send them to kindergarten. What happens at kindergarten for boys who have especially high levels of testosterone? They're not able to sit for a long time. They get very restless, isn't it? Tak kerti duduk diam. Bila tak kerti duduk diam, cikgu pun mula marah and start labeling these boys. Budak laki-laki ni tak boleh duduk diam. Panggil mak dia. And the mother was also, you know, it's a vicious cycle. And the boy gets labeled sampai primary school lagi, budak nakal and hyperactive. Of course, there are cases where there are genuine cases of hyperactiveness. But yes, it's very common for boys not to be able to sit still. I have 5 boys, I know. Yes, I have 5 boys, by the way. And my eldest is 24 and my youngest is 11, but I have 1 girl. So, there you go. You need to understand the development of boys to appreciate that when they have these surges of testosterone, it's actually energy. And the best way to handle this is to find ways, healthy ways where they can burn it. Kadang-kadang budak lelaki ni tuan-puan, very, kita kata tak boleh duduk diam, jumping here and then what do? Do we yell at them? An alternative is to bring them to the playground. Do something, bring them out, let them run, let them burn that energy. By the time they come back, energy dah habis, problem solved. It's a very easy way. Just bring them out because they need to burn that energy. And if you don't allow them, especially these days, I mean, we live in double-story homes and whatnot. There's no space for them to move around. You know, when you look at the history of geniuses, yeah, Thomas Edison and all these people, a lot of them actually were, based on the biographies, scientists found that they were very active. But why were they not labeled as hyperactive and such? That because of the way of life. Back then, they were able to roam free, running around, and our children, they have the same energy, but they do not have healthy ways to express it. And that's when the problem starts. Now, that's that. Now, anger. Is it right to be angry when a child misbehaves? Of course it is. Of course it is. It is not normal for us not to be angry, isn't it? It is perfectly normal. In fact, anger is one of the most important emotions that our children learn from us how to manage. It's not a matter of whether we get angry or not, it's what we say and how we say it when we get angry. So bear that in mind. It's not natural to expect a parent never to be angry and always to, you know, be patient all the time. It's not possible. Spanking, I have already mentioned that just now, and I also mentioned it in my book. Now, you and your spouse, we always hear that you and your spouse, you have to be on the same page and this and that. But what I want to mention this morning is something else. You see, when we have children, we tend to pay a lot of attention on the children. And what happens is the relationship between us and our spouse sometimes no longer becomes a priority. So actually, in terms of importance, your relationship with your children, your relationship with your spouse, actually your relationship with your spouse comes first.